Alrighty, happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome back to our NoCodeOps live community show. I hope you're doing well wherever in the world you're joining us from. And actually, as I always like to say, I love to see who's interacting with us today. So please drop a comment in the chat, interact as much as possible, because this is your opportunity to grow with us within, the next 60 minutes with our events live in this community. And if this is your first time here, we're NoCodeOps, an international community for operations professionals who leverage the power of no-code and automation at work. And we have a free Discord server, very active. We host a ton of events, including these live streams, and we hope to bring you as much value as possible with all these events. And I'm sure we do, because we have fantastic guest speakers from either the automation, the no-code space, the RevOps, GTM Ops, you name it. We have fantastic speakers that offer their time and expertise to bring that value to our community. And one of these speakers is today's speaker, Jen Bergren. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Claudia. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure and honor. All right, people, if you don't know this because you don't know this, but I've been chasing Jen for such a long time. I have been chasing her, been hunting her. She finally said yes. We finally put it into the calendar, which made that happen. And I'm so very happy that she's here, because Jen is an operations educator, as well as being a ton of amazing things. Like, I'm going to share her LinkedIn profile. You're going to see she's up to so many fantastic things, being one of the coaches of the HubSpot RevOps Bootcamp. She's also an author, obviously a speaker, education and lifelong learning advocate. She's got so many amazing titles, and I can vouch for each and every one of them because she's absolutely fantastic. And what is obviously, Jen, you're going to change my mind today, because I was about to say what is less fantastic is the is the topic that we'll be talking about today. No, I'm joking. It's a topic that is so very relevant. If you've been watching our live streams in the past few weeks, we've been talking a lot about RevOps, all the sort of pain points that they struggle with, and best practice to help this new developing career develop even more. And so we talked about bottlenecks, data silos, how to solve for all those challenges. But one regular topic that people always talk about, and we were joking with Jen, because I was saying, oh, this topic is such a hot trend, and I was like, actually, it's never a trend, but it's such a hot topic all the time, and that is documentation, right? We always say how important documentation is, but actually, Jen, why is it so important? Why should we care so much about documentation? I'm sure you'll explain it very beautifully in your presentation today. But before we get to it, would you like to tell us more about what you do? How did you get into becoming an educator, a coach? Why are you so passionate about what you do today?
Oh, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Claudia. As Claudia mentioned, my name is Jen Bergren. I guess my most recent regular job was head of operations at Remotish, which was a HubSpot RevOps and WebOps agency. I started basically as the first employee there and held many different roles on many different years, many different parts of the business. But currently, I'd say I'm an operations educator, making classes and other content on topics such as documentation, as you can see. Creating that education I wish existed when I was building these programs and systems from scratch for that agency. I don't want you to have to do everything from scratch and recreate the wheel. I'm trying to help. And I do have a mission of bringing more attention to this human side of operations and elevating ops professionals, helping people advance their careers with these types of skills, maybe even eventually at the university level. So less people are falling into ops like I did after careers in graphic design and photography and owning another business and marketing and many other careers that eventually led to ops, because ops was kind of the common thread hidden throughout all of those jobs, which is a whole session by itself. But
I love that so much. I love that you're thinking about actually educating the future operators, because it's so true. Like, so many people kind of fall into operations, or I guess we're finally shaping what the actual word means, and we're shaping like things like RevOps and GTM Ops and all the different ops available at a company. Whereas before, I just feel like people do ops anyway, like
Yeah,
regardless of your
without the
role,
title.
yeah, you just do ops because it's part of what you do. It's like putting together systems that work and help your team scale and just improve their practice. So anyway, I'll stop faffing around. I'll let you
I wanted
you
to
know
thank you as well for your work elevating operations.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Like we too often talk about tools and platforms and what they can do for us, but we forget about highlighting the people that actually leverage those platforms to make the magic happen. So that's what I'm here for and what the community is here for.
Well, thank you. And if it's okay, I wanted to talk about why documentation. Why do I talk about it? Why do I write about it? Why do I bring attention to it? I know I'm unusual in my love of documentation. Like we were discussing before, I discovered that operations was that common thread throughout my life, throughout my careers. What originally attracted to me to one of my previous careers in marketing was the love of creating helpful content, and documentation is creating helpful content. It explains how everything works, which helps my curious brain, which always wants to know how everything works and why things happen. But some more specific examples I saw the benefits of at my previous job at that agency was about reducing stress from not having to remember everything without making mistakes, my stress of doing many roles at once, as many of you in the audience are probably doing in RevOps, and then also reducing team member stress by having this documentation. It helped with the efficiency and effectiveness of important and those often repeated processes, like at an agency, it would be customer onboarding and offboarding. It helped build that culture of learning and continuous improvement. And I love learning. I love sharing the learning, sharing the love of learning. So that was amazing. Increased transparency in how and why everything happened, who does what, making those responsibilities clear, and improved employee onboarding. So nobody felt lost or unsupported, or at least that was the goal, and having that documentation to fall back on. But unfortunately, there are not a lot of resources or classes to help people actually do documentation. Surprising, because as the event page I think Claudia put together said, it's the topic that quietly powers everything else. I really liked that line. So if you're here today, thank you for joining us. And I want, excuse me, I want you to be less quiet about it. Please communicate more about documentation. That is my ask of you.
Absolutely. And actually, if you are watching and if you're in the audience right now, tell us maybe something that you're stressing about right now. Like, tell us about maybe a workflow or a process or something that's really challenging at work. So maybe we can, I can't promise anything today within the next 50 minutes, but maybe we can connect with you and help out.
So our agenda for this session today, for this live stream, first we'll do just a quick section to get us aligned on what do I mean by documentation, why is it useful? You might know this if you're here in the audience, but the section can also give you some human-friendly language for making your business case and gaining buy-in for doing documentation and using documentation. We'll have a little break for questions on that topic before getting into that more how technical information, like how to know what to include in documentation, how to decide what to document first, how to get your teams to use it and contribute to that documentation work. Then I'm going to give you a document that has a link to a template and many other resources. Since we do have limited time here today, I can't get super deep into all these topics, but I'll give you the resources to go deeper on your own. And then, of course, question time at the end. So the what? Getting us all on the same page, getting us aligned. I know that's a favorite RevOps word, alignment. I like to say documentation is recording who, what, where, when, why, and how to do everything in your company or role, and storing that information in one place where other people can find it and use it. I know technically, if you want to be super technical, the storing part is often called knowledge management, but we're not going to get into that semantic differences today. We're keeping it simple with human-friendly language. Basically, documentation is any recorded information not only located in someone's head. If you need to have a meeting in order to get access to the information you need, like by verbal communication, that information is probably not documented, or that knowledge holder missed the sharing step. So that helps you know a little bit about What could be documentation? It's sometimes referred to as standing operating procedures, business handbooks or manuals, process playbooks. The word process and procedures can be a bit intimidating to non-operations people, like the people you're working with, if you're trying to get other teams on board with documenting, for example. So let's make it a little more relatable and easy to understand. Documentation is content, helpful content that helps you and your teams. It is knowledge sharing, eliminating those knowledge gaps and knowledge silos. And I do want to mention here, it doesn't have to be written. If you hate writing, you've already tuned out this conversation, come on back. It can be in video format to start with. It can be in a fancy tool that I think Claudia has used before with creating step-by-step GIFs, following your mouse around the screen. Start with the format easiest for you to actually do it. So you actually start. That's something is better than nothing. And I'll repeat that advice later, which we'll talk about more. But we are going to move on to a quick visual example of documentation. This may look familiar to many of you. It's a knowledge-based article from GitLab. Many of you may know it's one of the original champions of documentation and open source, open access to all company information for everyone, knowledge sharing. Thank you. I see a note from Debbie in the audience. Thank you, Debbie.
Are you reading the notes? Because I'm having the most fun here from people saying, to my question, what stresses you out at work? And I see documentation stresses me out. Okay.
I hope I can help shift that mindset a little bit and help with some tactics here today. For another example, here's another visual example of a document format. I'm going to give you a template like this, an example like this at the end of our discussion. It's like a gift to you if you stay to the end. You'll have a template for you. But in case you're thinking like, this is NoCodeOps, I'm not documenting code. What am I documenting? Here's a few examples of general things you might document at your company, things I documented at that previous agency. Maybe you're also thinking, well, I can see all those little boxes in my workflow software. Is that documentation? I would say not exactly. Like, does it show why each step is there? Can everyone the process effects log in and see it in this workflow and automation software and know how to interpret it? Does the software show how it's related to or interacts with other automations or interacts with other parts of non-automated parts of the process? Probably not in a way the non-technical people can interpret, such as the leaders. But if you've solved this in some way, please let us know at the end in the Q&A. We'd love to hear about it. But my point here is you'll probably still need some documentation of the more human elements of the work. And just a reminder for all of us, even I need reminders, some motivation for starting. Document it or it didn't happen. That's a good note to have where you can see it maybe on your desk. All right, we're done with the what section. I know most of you probably knew a lot of that information. We're going to move on to the why. So I have a question for you in the audience. Why is documentation essential for RevOps in particular? I know it's important for every department, but why is it extra important for RevOps? Put it in the chat. I don't think I can see the chat, but I think
Don't
Claudia
worry,
can field it for me.
Yes, I've got a lot of set of eyes here. I'm looking at LinkedIn, YouTube, everything. So I've got you, Jen.
All right. So if you've taken my RevOps Bootcamp, you might know some of the common answers to this theme of why is it extra important for RevOps to do things that, in theory, all departments should be doing. But Claudia, what are we seeing in the chat?
Let me have a look here. Righty. I saw clarity and alignment, says Debbie.
Excellent answer.
And Sarah from just a few minutes ago, a topic that quietly powers everything else. I'm using this line for future interviews, so particularly resonating with what we said about documentation in general. And yeah, that's it for now in terms of comments. Yeah.
Great. I also want to let the audience know, when you see a gray slide today, that is a question for you. So thank you for sharing. Thank you, Claudia, for moderating.
Clarity. There's more people saying clarity. And so, yeah, just what we said, what we mentioned at the very beginning of our live stream, make sure that you interact as much as possible with us, because this is your opportunity to grow your practice for free. And, that's not taking it for granted.
We are here for you. And I like Claudia's description of this event that said documentation is the glue that holds revenue operations teams together. You may have guessed some of these answers. Here are a few reasons. We're going to have a few more slides of this, but a big reason is that RevOps works with more departments at the same time than a lot of other individual departments, which means cross-functional processes are more complex. So documenting is more important. People need documentation to understand these cross-functional processes. Handoffs between departments are a common area of friction that you'll need to improve, and you'll need them documented for both sides to understand what is going on. And changes and errors in RevOps would affect more people upstream and downstream than in a siloed department. So change management is a bigger part of RevOps roles compared to other roles in the company, and documentation helps with change management. RevOps is also often responsible for training or enabling more team members, more new and existing team members about changes and processes, and documentation helps with that. And then we have another slide with probably too many reasons, but if you need a few more reasons why documentation is especially important in RevOps, RevOps usually receives more questions and requests from more departments. This gets its own bullet point because it's a big time suck in RevOps. People asking for a shiny new thing they saw or asking a question they've already asked 100 times. It is harder to protect that strategic RevOps work against all these new requests from all these departments. But documentation can help you reduce questions and requests and reduce the fires from happening that you are trying to put out every day.
And also, like Jen, your future self is gonna thank you, right? Because we were discussing this today during our RevOps and GTM roundtable, and people were wondering about the difference between RevOps and GTM. And so we highlighted how sometimes RevOps could be really hands-on, really quite technical, right? Building those processes and those systems. And if you're if you're somebody who's building a process using whatever tool you use, you know that things might break, things might evolve, they might change, and so you need to have a good documentation on why you built certain processes and how. And so your future self can thank you for that.
It's an excellent reason. Thank you, Claudia. Adding on to that, I would say that fighting fire work and answering the same questions all day, and that's going to leave you with like no brain power to do more interesting and important and impactful type of work. So documentation can help with that. And this type of work, RevOps work, can be very stressful if you're just relying on your memory for those 10,000 tasks you need to do every day. Documentation can help. Another reason it's a little meta is that so many people misunderstand what RevOps is responsible for. So having documentation on what RevOps is responsible for, as well as doing the documentation itself, can be helpful. Related to that previous point about all the questions, people misunderstand RevOps as like an internal support department, a ticket desk. Documenting what you do can actually help. And of course, RevOps also helps the overall alignment of revenue teams, which you can do using documentation so everyone knows who's doing what and when and why. And finally, but not leastly, which I don't think is a word, but RevOps helps the company move faster, more efficiently, and effectively. Those major responsibilities of RevOps, and documentation helps with all of those. You can scale with confidence using documentation. Everyone's not guessing and trying to remember what to do and interpreting what's happening differently. And efficiency, I know it's a big topic, especially right now, doing more with less. It gets its own slide because it is so important in RevOps and in the current climate. So documentation can help you with easily completing your work quickly because people are not needing to search everywhere or wait for information. As a research study explained, information chaos means lost time. Employees waste 3 to 11 hours a week on average just searching for information and communication. And documentation helps with that, especially if you're sharing it in a way that people can find. Documentation helps you delegate more easily without you being the bottleneck. When people have questions, this includes delegating work to AI. One example is if it's documented, the AI can pull answers from it, so less people have to ask you the question and wait for an answer. Both sides are going to save time. utilizing documentation. It helps you repeat your work easily. You don't need to remember, which takes more time. It helps people not make mistakes, so you're spending less time fixing errors. Helps you onboard new people efficiently, increasing your revenue faster, not just your RevOps team employees, but you're probably also helping with the onboarding of all the revenue team's employees and likely managing the revenue team's documentation as well. And documentation enables you to see and agree on and improve processes, making those processes themselves more effective and efficient, including knowing what to automate, agreeing with people on the steps of the process, and seeing where automation can be used to improve. And final notes on this slide are about making, iterating, and experimenting more efficient, documenting what worked, what didn't. And then that human side of feeling more confident in your role, which makes you not second guess everything or wait for answers, helping your work be completed faster and giving you less stress. So then we have a familiar face talking about that automation side of it. I want to highlight the quote from ZapLab Master Claudia in a previous live stream this year, which you can read on your own and get a break from my voice for a minute.
I love that you're talking about process and process mapping and that shift you have to get into when approaching automation or streamlining ops. Yeah, I've been obsessed with process mapping. My community knows that's so crucial. Yeah, I agree with my past self. It's so crucial to have that click when you start mapping your processes, even before you start approaching your build. It's such a change in your mindset. It's such a shift. That's where the magic really happens. That's when you scale. When you have good documentation and good process mapping, that's I write too much. That's when you can go to your stakeholders and say, hey, this is how we're going to go from 0 to hero. Yeah. Well said, Claudia.
Well said.
Absolutely.
And for another break and just me talking about my thoughts, I also interviewed many people, including Melissa McCready, for a book I've almost finished with finally. You can read what she said here on this topic, but I'll let you know that out of the 35 expert RevOps research interviews I did, I asked if they considered process strategy and documentation part of RevOps. No one said no. So not just my thoughts and Claudia's thoughts.
That's great. That's reassuring. That's great.
There were just a few caveats like, well, maybe not like HR documentation. I'm like, well, true. True. But I have a break here for any questions on what we just covered before we get into the how section.
Absolutely. Let me have a look through the chat. I saw that we did have a question from Delji. What is the core objective of documentation? And I'm going to try and pull it up into here. Okay, here we go. Do we need to document everything that happens in the organization? What are your thoughts on this matter? Like, do you think everything needs to be documented, or do you have a scale of prioritization of different things to be documented? What do you think, Jen?
I would say things that repeat often are important to document. Things that many different people do are as important to document. On the other hand, things that one person does also important, because if that one person's gone, everything might break and no one knows. There are many different things. Ideally, I would say everything that happens would need to be documented, but not all at once, because that is overwhelming and no one will ever start. So we are going to talk about where to start, especially for RevOps in a moment. But this is an excellent question. And the core objective, that's difficult because there's so many reasons why to document. But I would say just so everyone knows, transparency, everyone knows what to do, when to do it. You don't have to guess. You don't have to think there's like secret things happening that you don't know about. What do you think?
Yeah. And I think as well, when you start, when you join a company or, when you work at a company and things are working, but that you would like to go a little bit faster, that things could be going a little bit better. And so you start to look for opportunities where to have that impact, you think of your day to day and all the things that you're doing. And I love that you highlighted in your previous slides the human aspect of things. Like if we document, we have an opportunity to iterate on our work and make it more streamlined, make it faster, make it better, which then would allow us more time to have an actual impact or focus our attention into what we enjoy doing the most. That could be a different task, that could be building a different process, but I really love that. And so maybe documentation goes hand in hand as well with finding the pain points of your day to day, so that you can start really breaking it down into simple steps. And then it's nice, it's like having a blank page. And some people have analysis paralysis with that, but it's nice to recognize when things aren't going so smoothly, because then you can have an impact straight away. You can act, and you can start with that blank page and start writing down, okay, how do we get from 0 to hero, or even how do we get from 0 to 1? Because sometimes that's the one thing that has the most impact, when you just make the one little step that gets the things moving. So yeah.
Thank you, Claudia. Those are excellent answers. I think building on that would be, yes, you're able to spot improvements if it's documented, because you know, like, what and why and how is this happening and what am I going to affect if I make changes, as well as if you're documenting things that you've already figured out, that's already like repeating, that leaves you with time and brain space to work on new things, building new processes, more creative, I guess, sort of work.
Yeah, and I see like people, Alejandro Diaz mentioned documentation and AI in the chat. So that's even more powerful nowadays. I don't know if Jen, if you're going to be talking about AI, or if you have generated a thought around it. But I think once you have that documentation, you can do so much more now that we have all these AI tools that we can import into our documentation and have it analyze it, have it improve it, have it just like confront different give us a different perspective maybe. So there's so much more that we can do with it. So finally documentation can be fun, right?
Yeah.
We can finally have some fun with it.
Great discussion. Thank you for moderating and sharing, Claudia. We are going to get into the how. I know I did a lot of talking on the why, because documentation is something most companies don't do or don't do well. I also made that first part of the presentation so you can use it to convince other people in your company to document and use documentation and get adoption. I am going to give you the slides at the end of the day too. So let's get into how to do it, how to be successful at documentation. And related to how to start and knowing what to document, question for you in the audience: what are the most important RevOps processes to document? What do you think?
Nice. Tell us, spill the sauce.
Let us know in the chat.
And also here's I'm also sharing your LinkedIn just in case people want to connect. But yeah, what do you think are the most important RevOps processes to document?
No wrong answers. This is a safe space. Are we seeing any ideas?
I see people that would like to invite you to train AI on your processes. Debbie, what do you think? Debbie, you're quite engaged in our chat today. Tell us, what do you think the most important RevOps processes should be for us to document? And I can see another like 30 people watching. So to the 29 extra attendees, tell us, interact with us, tell us everything in the chat. And yeah, Jen, I guess while we wait for a few things to pop up, have you trained a custom AI for your documentation?
I have not, but I would love to hear more about it if anyone has tried. I have heard about people using the documentation they've already created to make like it's not called a bot, I know. Agent is a new fancy word.
Yeah,
it could be either of those. Whatever word you want to use.
Could be either of those.
to answer their questions, to answer people's questions. So people ask the AI instead of asking the person. Saves everybody time, but it does require having the documentation first.
Absolutely. All right. We've got Debbie saying that we should be documenting current state, future states, handoffs, and definitions.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful answer. Thank you, Debbie. I am going to share a giant slide because I know the best answer is it depends, a classic consulting answer, especially since RevOps still looks different at every company. But here's just a few examples. These are broad. You'll probably break a lot of these out into more specific articles or processes, especially if you're just starting with your own documentation for your own role. You may look at some of these and think they might, quote unquote, belong to the revenue teams themselves, but in RevOps, you will need to know how they work so you can improve them, fix the problems, enable people to do these jobs better. And those revenue teams probably haven't documented them. So that might be something you'll have to take the lead on in this effort. So moving on from that giant list, you are going to get the slides, so if you need that list. But
Brilliant.
But another question for you. It's a yes or no one. Might be easy for the chat. Should you start with the most important process? Should you start your documentation if you're just starting in this role at this company, your first documentation ever? Should it be the most important document? Is that where you should start? Put it in the chat. You have any brave people answering?
Yeah, and I think because obviously maybe it's the platform as well. They've got a little delay. Yeah, a little bit, because we've got another answer from the previous question that says, I think we need to do process mapping of existing processes and assess where we need documentation for all or specific processes that has a major impact on the outcome.
Great answer.
Yeah. So Dalji, Debbie, and everyone else watching, should we start with the most important process? Yes? No? Don't worry. It's, again, safe space, no wrong answer.
We're not grading you on this quiz.
And maybe Jen, maybe you can let you know when they come up. It might just be a slight delay.
There might be a delay. All right. I'll give away my answer. It might not be everyone's answer, but my answer would usually be no, or not usually, because that most important process is probably too big. It probably involves too many people you're going to have to talk to figure out one consistent process. That is going to put too much pressure on yourself for your first piece of documentation at this company, in this role, or ever. And then you're likely going to give up and not complete it because it's an impossible task. You're going to want some quick wins first for motivation.
So going to that, that step from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
Right? That would be your quick win.
So if you don't start your documentation initiative with your most important process, where should you start? I'd like you to take a minute and think about what has been stopping you from starting or restarting this documentation effort. Why haven't you been working on it? What is your roadblock, as you see on the screen here? There is not a time for audience question here, and we're having that delay. But if you think about that for a minute, I will say time is usually the most common answer. Maybe what first pops into people's minds about why they haven't started their documentation or why they haven't continued their documentation. But I would love if you could dig deeper and identify the reason causing you to feel like you don't have time. And that biggest one is usually overwhelm. Thinking about, if you're thinking about it's going to take too much time to start it, or deciding where to start is too difficult, and then the time that you keep doing it forever because documentation is ongoing. Another reason is being worried about team adoption. Like, is it going to be worth the time to do all this documenting work if people don't use it or maintain it?
That's the one that I was about to pull up, from our community as well. Yeah, so documentation and creating templates that will never be looked at or used.
It's a common struggle. We're sharing our struggles here. You're not alone. Not to make this seem like a depressing list. We're gonna get ways to overcome this, but that final common roadblock to starting or restarting or continuing the documentation is being worried about getting leadership buy-in. Maybe your current leaders won't allow their team time to complete this work or spend time to champion its use or hold people accountable to using the documentation that exists. So get some on a positive note here, how to help simplify where to start your documentation journey. These are my 3 suggestions based on those 3 common roadblocks. And I will go into more detail in the resources I will give you at the end. But the short version is, for overwhelm, start small with one of your tasks that you repeat often. I suggest starting with your own tasks or processes so you don't have to go investigate and interview other people, because that adds complexity and stress and delays in getting it done. You want to get those quick wins that we talked about for your first pieces of documentation. And for that adoption fear of other people not adopting documentation, start with a process or a person or a team where you think it is the most likely to be adopted. You will likely know who will or will not use documentation, who you work with every day. You've probably picked up on the signs of this. Don't make it hard on yourself by choosing people or a process that you know will resist as your test group or pilot group for your documentation efforts. Even if that seems like the most quote unquote important process to document. For example, your sales process might be very important to document, but starting this effort with salespeople, it's going to be very difficult. Usually, I know it's a generalization, but that could be a very difficult place to start. And if you have that fear of getting leadership buy-in or not getting leadership support on teams creating and using documentation, maybe start with a process that is related to current business goals, something where you can measure the current state, before documentation state, and the after documentation state of the process to see if the process itself has measurable improvements, to test or pilot this new process of documentation. But as you see at the bottom of the screen, most importantly, don't overthink it. Start taking action. If you're not sure what your roadblock is, you have all these roadblocks, start small is the best advice I can give. I am going to give you, again, more resources on this. I just want you to know documentation procrastination is normal. We all do it. Even I do it sometimes, and I have to come back to my own presentations and remind myself, why am I doing this? You're not alone.
Documentation procrastination. I like that. Debbie says adoption is a big one, and that's why I would recommend getting a documentation expert to create your documentation and train your AI on it.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Jen, but maybe
Okay.
I'll spare it for the Q&A. Yeah, I'll spare you for now.
Okay, I have an audience question, or at least something to think about. What should be included in good documentation? What do these documents need to contain to be able to accomplish your goals and be adopted? Put it in the chat. Maybe the chat will speed up.
Yes.
We'll
We've
see.
got a big one. We've got a big one from Michael. I'm wearing the extra attendee label as a badge here. So document roadblocks and current state first, then use that to raise awareness. Is there a dynamic RPA workflow identifier software that we are using that is hat RPA tools are using that help better generate flowcharts tied to roles? Okay, I'm going to put it in because this is long. Michael. Where team member names can be dynamically updated as teams change, especially if you've had to build that from scratch. What strategy if starting from square one? RPA workflow identifier software.
I am not the software expert, but we probably have people in the audience, and Claudia, you yourself.
Yeah, I'm thinking if like a Coda could serve that, because I know you can assign different different pages, similar to Notion, Coda. That sort of software maybe could be useful in this particular use case here, because you can change the people that are assigned to different pages and workflows. So I'm guessing that could be a good shout for you, Michael. Maybe connect with me and we can chat more about tools and platforms, and I can always ask the community for a little extra help. But I think those two could be useful.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. And Debbie, people tend to just want to do their job and resist the task of documenting their job. Anything that's not part of their KPIs, people tend to avoid. Mm. Okay, so I see what she's saying. So just like focusing on your KPIs, reaching your goals without necessarily documenting the journey, which is, I get it. Sometimes, I do that myself. You just want to get to the end, without uh documenting, I guess, the journey. So
I would
I
say
don't know.
documentation could help you get there faster because you won't be repeating past mistakes and could
Yeah.
help improve those KPIs as well. But I do have a whole blog series on overcoming objections like this that people have. That is
And I
included in
also
the
think,
resource document. Go ahead.
yeah, I also think that it's super, super useful. Actually, with experience, you would know that if you documented that journey and you got to your KPI, you reached your goal, you can use that documentation to then generate a report on what you've done, and what was their journey like, and how do you actually demonstrate the impact that your KPIs even have. So documentation is really, really the silent, uh, aspect that powers it all. Just like what we were saying, because it's going to be so necessary, but you never know when you need it until you do.
Right.
you know
It's true. Great
um
points. Thank you everyone for participating. But we're gonna move on. Make sure we can get through this section. Thank you everyone for sharing. So here's a few of the things I recommend you consider including in helpful documentation. You can read through this. All these things are going to be included and explained in the template I'm going to give you soon. We're almost to the end of today. I'll say you're welcome to simplify or rename sections, remove parts that don't make sense for you. I'm just giving it to you so you're not starting from scratch like documentation helps with. And some of these items, your documentation storage tool or knowledge base might record for you, but if not, you can always add it manually to your template like this. And I know I am talking a lot about writing text when there are other ways to document. We mentioned earlier, I do often suggest starting text writing as starting the process with text because it can be easier and more accessible for people in the company to do that, not just the ops people who might have fancy flowchart mapping software, but if you're trying to get it documentation adopted for more people doing it. Editing text is easier than video editing or flowchart editing for a greater number of people because those know they don't have any special software needed or skills required in text editing, and it can be easier, faster for translation for global teams, and increasing adoption basically for creating documentation, not just you making everyone's documents because you have the fancy software. But of course, start with the format easiest for you. I know we're repeating this because it's good advice. Start where you're actually going to start. So you actually start. You can record yourself in audio or video and transcribe it in any tools you want. You can use AI to start a draft or edit your transcription. You can use a fancy tool to record where your mouse is moving. I think Tango is one of them that
yeah,
Claudia's talked about.
shout out to Tango.
I know they commented on the event post, so I'm like, we'll give them a shout out.
I love it. I've been using
Yeah.
it ever since I learned about documentation. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say if you use those methods to start, make sure you have humans checking and adding context to it at some point. And I do recommend having visuals or multimedia in your documentation, not just writing. Here's a few examples. I know a lot of past live streams talked about process mapping, yay. And I can't do a documentation presentation without showing my favorite emoji at the bottom here, the party document, like the party parrot.
Oh
But
yeah.
I just want to say don't get scared by this giant list of possibilities. You're not going to do them all at once. You can add formats later after you get started in one format.
Right. If anyone ever complains about documentation ever again, I'll send them to you. You're
So,
like the documentation party queen.
documentation party. It's what we're having here. All right, we're going to try at least one more question to the audience here. I know a lot of you have seemed interested in this topic. How do you encourage the adoption and usage of documentation? Because it can be discouraging if all of your beautiful hard work documenting doesn't get used. How do you encourage people to use it and to document? Put it in the chat.
Great point. All right, audience, we're back. We need your help again. How can you encourage the adoption and usage of documentation? How would you convince your best buddy at work to use that documentation? What would it do for you both? Maybe think about the perks, consequences? Yeah, I don't know. Let us know. And maybe I can ask you that question in the meantime, Jen, if you want, because I know we have more questions in
Okay.
the form for our Q&A, and this is something that I was just thinking throughout your presentation. What's the difference between SOPs and documentation? Is there a difference? And when I say SOPs, I'm going to give you the actual meaning in business, the standard operating procedure. So you mentioned Tango, which Tango is what I use to generate my SOPs. So because I do build a lot of systems for myself and the team, I document them, using the platform, and I call them SOPs. But would that be documentation? I'm not sure. Are they the same?
Yeah, I would say they are the same, different words for the same thing. I'm not a super big fan of the word SOP because it's an acronym. It's kind of jargony. It kind of sounds like something that's only HR can do, for example, less accessible and friendly for everyone to want to do. But you're welcome to use whatever language for the word documentation that works for you and your company to actually do it.
I love it. I don't think, let me see if the platform here is putting it, but I can see it from LinkedIn that I'm looking at as well. So it's not in the platform yet, but I'm gonna read it out to you. Actually,
Okay.
I'm gonna see if I can copy and paste it. It's from Debbie. This
Thank
is
you,
gonna
Debbie.
this is gonna make you laugh. Put your documentation in the air and wave it like you just don't care.
This is an excellent answer.
And
I might have a
then
picture of this at the end of the presentation too.
I love it. Like just try it. Just give it your all and see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yes.
But then she says, start with empathy, show them what's in it for them. Yeah.
Yes. Excellent answer.
And we've got from Sarah as well. When people ask a question, send them directly to the documentation instead of answering directly. Also, pin the
Fantastic.
documentation in the relevant channel
Those are
or
great
dashboards.
advice. Yes. Yes. Put it where people already are
Well done,
living every
Sarah.
day. Yeah. Yes.
Create the
Thank you.
process map first and then use it to persuade them, says Shady. Oh, love it. You guys are here. Nice.
Thank you. Thank you. We just had to fill in while we waited for that delay to kick in. Thank you, everyone, for participating. To encourage that adoption of documentation, you're going to want to start to build a culture of documentation, a culture of transparent communication. Building a culture requires a human touch. As you can see here in this slide, that now is in a different format. Let me get back to the view. Here we go. Here
Nice.
we go. Documentation isn't always writing, it is recording information in some format. So this LinkedIn post is very relevant for how to create a culture. More specifics to building this culture that is going to help you with adoption, starting small with one person or team or topic at a time as like a test or pilot group, setting up communication channels, maybe not just waving it in the air, but using those channels to explain the benefits, what's in it for them, as I believe Debbie said, saying how you want to encourage knowledge sharing and learning, benefits from efficiency, improving processes, creating that desire for people to change, emphasizing the benefits like transparent communication, equal access to information for everyone in the company if it's documented, behavior modeling so people can see other people like you doing and using documentation and reminding people to do it, that it exists to help them, which you can use automation for reminders. And you should definitely bring your team along the journey, like I believe Penny said in a previous live stream. If you're working in public on documentation, basically communicating why, the benefits you're seeing, normalizing it, as we have on the screen here, baking documentation into many aspects of work. Because documentation and transparent communication are not normal average behavior at companies. People are not used to it, so make them aware of a better way to work and a desire to change. including more ways to normalize it, teaching people in onboarding, adding it into trainings, like documentation is required in order to train people, and adding it into your project management. And of course, the celebrating and rewarding people who do it and making it easy for people by creating a system to make all this efficient, which is our next slide. We're almost to the end. I know we're running out of time, but one way to make it easy for documentation users and creators and approvers and all the other roles you might have is by making a system and documenting that system, testing it, improving it, and then rolling it out and training it to go through these culture and change management steps that were on the previous slide. What I mean by system here is not just one piece of software where you store the documents. I mean the people and processes, and also the many different tools you use to build a culture. And you can see on the screen here the common components of the system about time management, reserving time to do it, because time, as we know, can be the biggest roadblock or objection. You're going to have task or project management, knowing what to do and when related to documentation. You're going to have your communication methods for change management, and your storage or organization about where does this documentation live. And once you've tested it with yourself in a small pilot group, you've tested out the system, you can assign roles to spread out the responsibility and bring your team along. I know we don't really have time to get into all of these today, but the slide is like an entire class all by itself. But I'll give you some resources in a minute to help dig deeper. And to make the concept a little easier to understand, here's the system example I used at the agency where I last worked. Time management with recurrent calendar blocking with pop-up or Slack email notifications, task management with a project management system for your current priority tasks about documenting, and importantly, a recurring task for quarterly maintenance on documents. And you can add document links into task templates and maybe have a different document for a wish list of non-priority future documents. Communication, we use Slack for real-time updates. We had a Slack channel just for like processes. You might not want to call it documentation because people may not pay attention, but give it some name that people will pay attention to. Then I copied that information, or like the most important information from that channel, into a weekly internal newsletter on Friday and a team meeting on Monday or Tuesday. So people were getting it in different formats at different times of the week.
You can call it the party doc and use that
party
GIF.
doc channel.
The GIF that you had, and you can automate that channel so that you can get, updates live as soon as they get modified.
Excellent work. Excellent ideas. And then storage organization. We use the HubSpot knowledge base. This is probably pretty niche, but that's because we were a HubSpot agency. But you want to use something your team uses every day, or a tool that integrates into a tool your team is already using. And then, of course, you will eventually want to have different roles. Some people are going to have more than one role, especially on small teams. But everybody might be a user or editor, but a few people might be creators, approvers, knowledge owners, responsible for entire categories of work. And different ways to word some of that change management that we talked about in the culture slides by bringing people along with you as you are creating and testing all of this, asking people for feedback, getting them involved, using tools they're already using or integrating into tools they're already using so they don't have to create new routines. Maybe remember that not everyone in the company is an ops person who likes to learn new tools. Mm-hmm. Don't make it harder to adopt by like stacking learning a new tool on top of a new habit, because unlike just migrating tools, documentation is probably a new habit for people. A lot of people haven't experienced it before. So that is going to be difficult. Try to make it easier on yourself. And then give people clear roles and responsibilities for this work. Keep reminding them. People need reminders. Keep reminding them and showing them the benefits. And finally, get leadership buy-in to reinforce your efforts. And hooray, we've reached the end. Hooray.
What it feels like when you're a documentation wizard.
Yes, this one. It looks like I did remove the getting the hands up in the air one, but I think I have a resource here that I think, Claudia, you might be able to put in the chat or the many chats.
Yes, let me go and get it.
I'll give you a minute for that.
Absolutely.
We're almost at our time because I talked a lot.
No, it's all good. We like, this is like our opportunity as a community, as the people watching. This is our opportunity to grow together. It's brilliant. It's brilliant that you give us the time. I appreciate that so much because I don't take that for granted whatsoever. And I love having, speakers like you that come with such an expertise and the experience, just happily sharing their value here. So thank you. And here's the link. I'm gonna put it in the chat for everyone. So if you've been watching up until now, or even
Yeah,
if
here's
you'll
your
watch
reward.
it in the future, here's your reward. Here's the reward, guys. Next time, maybe we'll
Oh,
send it by an email.
yeah.
I just posted it into the LinkedIn and YouTube, so everyone has it. If you happen to lose it, connect with me. Join the community at NoCodeOps. It's free to join, and if you come by the webinar, I'll be nice and I'll approve you in. Don't worry. But if you're missing, the resources for whatever reason, let us know and we'll get them to you.
And that is the end. And
Amazing.
we may not need to share the slide anymore, but I'm ready for a few minutes of questions. I think we have.
Yes, absolutely, we do. We've got about 3 minutes, so I wonder whether you guys can be super fast at typing, or whether I can also get one of the questions that we have from people that have signed up to the event. But let me do it properly, and here we go. You got a fancy little text. Q&A is
Ooh.
now officially open. Debbie's very thankful, and Shady as well. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys. Thank you so much. All right, let me get one of the questions that we do have here, because I don't want to let you go without the spice. I'm trying to look for one we haven't tackled. Done that. Okay, I like this one from Sarah, who's also watching, so that's great. What strategies have worked best for keeping documentation up to date as teams and processes evolve?
It's an excellent question. I would say assigning people roles so they know that they're responsible for either certain pieces of documentation or certain categories of documentation, and making a recurring task or recurring calendar block that's for quarterly maintenance of the documentation. So they'll go through all the documentation they own or they're assigned and making sure it's up to date. And we probably have like a checklist of things to look for in that quarterly update, whatever you particularly are concerned about for keeping up to date. And that is probably my most helpful tip, especially off the top of my head. Yes, automate.
Automate.
Automate the reminders. So people can
You can
look through
put
it.
on your automator
Yes, headband.
fancy
Yes.
headband, and you can automate that process as well, and keeping it up to date and alert your team. And if you want to know how to do that, again, connect.
I know. Claudia probably has a way. I've heard of ways to, like, if a piece of documentation hasn't been touched in 3 months and it sends out like an email like, hey, check this out. But kind of like the doing it all in a batch quarterly.
Yeah.
That's a simple way to do it.
Absolutely similar to when you don't show up to my community and then
You're like, hey, you haven't
stuff
been
happens.
engaged.
No, I'm joking. That's not actually automated. That's me
It's
chasing you
actually
guys the same
Claudia.
way that I chased Jen, and I'm so happy that I did, because I absolutely loved our event together. So I'm so happy. I know that you're going to New Orleans. Is that right? You're gonna
Yes, in May for a conference to talk on this topic, documentation. It's
I
the
love that.
RevOps
It's gonna
AF
be great.
conference.
We just came back from there with Zapier, so I'm sure you'll have a great time. It's a great city, and let me know if you want to meet, people from the community. I know people.
I will.
Amazing, Jen. Well, thank you ever so much. Let's keep in touch. I absolutely loved it, and I'm sure everyone else did. So thank you again. We'll keep in touch, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you everyone in the audience for joining us today to talk about documentation.
Documentation can be fun. You've seen it. We've proven it. Now go ahead and do it.
Go forth
All
and
right.
document.
Exactly. All right. Well, bye everyone. Take care.